Hi guys, welcome back to the Butterfly Effect podcast. I'm your host Liam. I'm here with Jack.
Howdy.
And our returning guest is none other than the Hidden Object Guru. Thank you for coming back.
Oh, absolutely happy to do it. Thanks for having me back.
My pleasure. So in this video, like in the last one, we spoke about Switchback, really extensively, and it was a really fascinating video. And this time we wanted to just talk more about DPA Season 2. Before I do that, Hidden Object Guru, I just wanted to quickly ask you if you could rank the first 4 DPA games, worst to best.
Little Hope, Medan, House of Ashes, and of course, Devil in Me, House of Ashes.
Okay, yeah, that's pretty similar to mine, actually, isn't it, Jack?
I think that's identical to yours, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, House of Ashes, Devil in Me were very...
No, I'm the same way. It's. I could flip-flop those.
I think I literally... Yeah, I think I literally gave it to the Devil in Me just for the features because it was bigger, it was better. I love Charlie Lonnet with like so much, and then obviously
He's so delightful.
yeah, that's it. And just the fact that you could sprint and crawl, and it just kind of really like made it bigger and better. And I just wanted to really reward that, so I gave it to the Devil in Me. But okay, that's really interesting. So I mean, the next game we have around the corner, that's probably going to be 2024, to be honest.
Yeah.
Directive 8020. Really broad general question, but are you a fan of like space horror? Are you excited for this one?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm Alien and Aliens from way back. I saw I'm old enough that I saw Event Horizon in theaters. You know, it's like I love me some space horror. You guys seen the Black Hole? Disney doing space horror back in the day?
Nah, I mean, I was gonna say I've seen Event Horizon, but I've not seen Black Hole.
You should see Black Hole. I mean, it is a Disney movie, but it's a surprisingly interesting, like, space horror thriller that just happens to be a Disney movie while they were trying to branch out. It's also confusingly a remake of The Tempest, but that's a whole other conversation. Yeah, it's a Shakespeare adaptation.
Oh wow, okay.
But yeah, no, I love space horror. Space horror. The thing is with horror, right? The first thing you want to do is, how are we isolating these characters? Because if someone's coming to the rescue, it's not horror, you know? And space is the easiest way to do that.
Yeah.
Oh my God, no easier
true.
way to isolate a set of characters than putting them on a spaceship. And then the thing is, and it's like everything out there is trying to kill you. And it's like this tiny spaceship full of circuitry that you don't understand how it works, right? Fundamentally, that's the only thing keeping you from a horrible death in the vacuum of space. And then you add into that some other threat coming in. Oh my God, of course it's my favorite. No, I can't get enough space horror.
No, that's really cool. I like that. And I wanted to ask like your thoughts about the potential villain we're going to get, because a lot of people theorize that we're going to get the same sort of parasites from House of Ashes. Obviously, we've seen a spaceship in that one, so it might be that we get like face-hugging aliens again. A lot of people, I saw someone in our comments recently mention that they think it could be a possession-based killer, with the little dialogue in the trailer saying Sims is trying to kill us. So, do you have any early thoughts on what you reckon the terror's going to be in this game, Hidden Object Guru?
I think, I mean, this is me just drawing a bunch of connections, right? Drawing some really wild, crazy things. Okay, so this is entirely based on like interviews of Will Biles that I've watched and read. So you remember back they did the Q&A, right? The Q&A, not a Q&A, an AMA on Reddit for House of Ashes. This is ages ago. There was an AMA. And they asked Will Biles what he was working on. One of the questions was. And the two things he said he was working on was basically, you know, how mold colonies work. And he wanted to look on Irish folklore. I think we all know what the Irish folklore thing is about, right? Like, and we'll get there when we get there, right? So we all know what the Irish folklore is. And so I thought mold colonies, that means Winterfold's going to be mold zombies. But then I saw the teaser for 8020, right? And I looked at the teaser for 8020, and I saw this teaser for 8020, and I'm like, okay, it's mold. It's alien mold that's taken over the ship, and it's driving people insane. That's what I think the threat is. That's what I think is happening. And additionally, I think like the alien mold like might be. They say they got hit by a meteor or something. So like maybe the mold is on a meteor. Have you seen Creepshow? The movie Creepshow?
I don't think I have.
No.
It's a series of short film, like it's an anthology film with a bunch of shorts, and they were all written by Stephen King. And one of them, and Stephen King stars in it, is a guy who finds a meteor. It's kind of like the Blob. He finds a meteor from outer space, and the meteor has like this horrible parasitic moss in it that like gets on his hand and eats his whole body and turns him into a moss monster. And I would not be surprised if the meteor or whatever that hits the ship at the start of the game, maybe someone getting killed by that thing hitting the ship is going to be our teaser sequence, or maybe our teaser. I mean, who the hell knows what the teaser sequence is going to be in this, right? Like, what could it be?
Yeah.
Because they've gone well into the past. So hell, the teaser sequence could be about vampires on the vampire planet for all I know. Which I'll get to that, my theory related to that. But anyway, so I think it's mold. I think it's a parasitic mold that takes people over and makes them go nuts. And you might say, isn't that too close to the Last of Us? Maybe The Last of Us. It'd be worse if it was zombies. That would be too close to the Last of Us. But also, there is also the possibility that this guy saying so-and-so is trying to kill me is a situation where he's actually, the one who has done something sinister and he's trying to get everyone to turn on them, but who knows? That's way too early to predict something like that. But the thing that gets me is, I think it might be mold that drives people insane. There's definitely already been images of mold taking over the ship, so that's confirmed. So that's probably what he's talking about. And secondly, and this is where things get a little weird, we know that they're going to the vampire homeworld. Well, not the vampire homeworld, the bat homeworld, right? Like, that is essentially confirmed. So my theory is, the thing that made, and this is where it gets a little weird, the thing that made the vampires, I keep saying the vampires, the bats build a colony ship and flee their homeworld is the same thing that's attacking the crew in 8020. That's my theory, because in an interview about A House of Ashes, in one of the special features interviews, Will Biles said that they were nomadic space creatures who fled their homeworld because of a cataclysm. And I think the cataclysm is whatever people are getting is attacking the ship in 8020. So that's, you want my theory, that is my way too elaborate theory based on a series of interviews Will Biles did.
To be honest, I think I'm sold. I think you've nailed it. That sounds really good. Like, I want to kind of just point to Jack here, because when we did a theory video, or more, less a theory, more kind of like a fantasy video, Jack loves The Thing, right? Or kind of like...
The Thing is, you mean the best movie ever made, The Thing?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Jack, I'll throw it over to you a little bit. How impressed or how happy would you be if we had like a shape-shifting killer on this like Cassiopeia?
Please give that to me. Please. Yeah. Because like I've said before, I think that you could have so much fun with it. Like, you could really ham up those dialogue scenes, because you'd just be making the player paranoid. I mean, especially because I know we say, the blind playthrough is the golden playthrough, and it would still be the same here. Imagine like even after your first playthrough, when when the thing is shapeshifted into somebody else, you'd still get satisfaction from that, because you could look at it and be like, oh god, it's right in front of me, it's posing as someone else and stuff.
And here were the clues I missed the first time.
Exactly. Like that, it's going to be rewarding and soul crushing in equal measure, like when you go back and play it that second time. So absolutely all for it. And plus, as well, like I've said, it really would change what they've done with villains so far. Like, don't get me wrong, I've loved the villains, but when I look at Wendigos, when I look at the bat monsters, and when I look at the werewolves, they do fit that similar mold where they're very quick, they can leap, they can jump, scratch and things. Like, to have just a shape-shifting villain, a little bit more nuanced, I think that would just be a perfect villain for this game. And I think if it's going to be used, it has to be this game in a way. I think that's the one that would make the most sense.
Yeah, that would be incredible. I think you're right. That would be such an interesting way for them to take it. I would love to see what they could do with that. But I got a question for you two, which is, when do you think the game is set?
Ooh. Want to go first, Liam?
Yeah, I really don't know, actually, because, like, they really could go for anything. I have no idea if this is going to be a futuristic game. I had, like, a feeling it was going to be a past game because of the plaque and, the devil in me, but that's SS Cassiopeia, isn't it? It's something completely different. It's just a bit of a homage thing, isn't it? So, yeah, honestly, like, I have no idea. I couldn't, name it. But, I mean, the curator does say, though, doesn't he? Like, I'll see you in the future. So we have to assume that it's going to be set way after the others. So yeah, like, I mean, the Devil in Me is kind of like a nowish game. So maybe kind of like in 100 years. I don't know, but I don't know. Is that feasible? But yeah, how about you, Jack?
I think, I mean, you could pluck a number out of thin air. Could it be the next 500 years, the next 1,000 years? But I think, interestingly for me, it'll be good to see what they do with the prologue, because all of the games so far, they've been set in the past. So, like, if this game is way in the future, how's a prologue that, if they do set it in the past from our time, how's that going to fit in with the plot?
Late, yeah.
Way in the future? Or is the prologue going to be set in the future, but naturally before main game? So I think, that will be interesting to see.
Yeah, like, did you have any theories on it on yourself there?
I do. First, personally, the thing I want, which is never going to happen, is that in the prologue, you're playing a couple of bat aliens on the bat planet when they find out about the monster. But no, that's not going to happen. That's just what I would want. But my theory is that it's going to be set in the future. I mean, as you say, the curator full on says, I'll see you in the future, and behind him is space. So, obviously it's going to be set in the future. But I don't think it's going to be set particularly far in the future. I think you're probably right about 100 years, and I'll tell you why. Simply because canonically in the world of in the world of the Dark Pictures, human technology has increased faster because of their access to the alien spaceship. Because if you look at the 80/20 magazine cover in Devil in Me, there's like just articles about how they're planning on going to Mars, like in the very near future. And they've got stasis technology that's going to be working soon. And they're thinking about, like, can we drill under the ice surface of Mars to find of Io to find the secret oceans under the surface of Io. Like, the technology has clearly been accelerated by the events of House of Ashes. And so for me, I think that it's probably going to be 100 years in the future, maybe even sooner than 100 years in the future. Like, I don't think it's going to be the far off Star Trek future. I think it's going to be, like, surprisingly close.
Yeah. Because
technology. And the really fun part is, because it's going to be set surprisingly close, the other 3 games, like, of the season are going to be taking place before the Cassiopeia has its disastrous encounters in 80/20, meaning, like, all of the hints at other games are going to be like historical documents, which I think is going to be a really interesting idea.
Yeah. A random thought as well, like, maybe the prologue could be set on the SS Cassiopeia and we could get a bit of a naval prologue.
That would be amazing!
Yeah, it'd be cool if we had I know it's, like, very fitting with Man and Medan and it's, like, going back to naval, but that would be cool, right? If we had a naval and then the game was a space game.
Yeah, the game was a space game, and, like, you were playing as the ancestors of one of the characters who survived the original Cassiopeia.
I would love that. Oh my god. Yeah.
Oh, that would be so cool. Yeah, so no, I'm really excited about 80/20. That's what I think is going on, but I mean, I'm one of these people who needs everything to be connected. I think my videos make that clear. So it's possible I'm reading into some things, but that is definitely where I think things are going.
Yeah, no harm in dreaming. I was going to let Jack decide which next game we'll talk about. So should we talk about Winterfold, Jack?
Yeah, and you know what? Before I go into any of my thoughts, I really wanted to put this comment to you that we had on our Easter eggs video a few weeks ago.
Ooh.
So this is from Cade, and they said the following. Okay, so I've done a bit of digging and I found something quite interesting out about Winterfold. Basically, that the actual Winterfold forest has this urban legend called the Acrid Critter of Winterfold. The story goes that in 1967, two lovers by the names of Philip Freeman and Angela Carter, maybe foreshadowing from Little Hope, were driving through the forest when there was a thick fog that clouded the car's windows, so Philip got out to clean them. But then he noticed a disgusting smell before getting back in the car. He noticed something by Angela's window. And then she goes on to describe what this monster is. It's about 4.5 feet tall. And although it has a face, it has no eyes, nose or mouth. Philip, it appeared to be emitting a faint light where the details of its oblong face should have been. It then goes on, but I won't read the whole comment out to you. But I thought that was dead interesting, and I think it's because we've been talking about Winterfold. It's definitely going to be zombies and things like this, and I do somewhat subscribe to that still because the bloodied hand on the title and stuff. But I think it's interesting because even speaking from a point of view of building a game, if you've got a game full of zombies, that's going to require a lot of character models, right? But historically, Supermassive don't necessarily have a lot of character models, so part of me does look at this comment and think, are we being led up the garden path that it's to do with zombies? And perhaps it does actually take, sort of inspiration from this local legend that Ada shared with us. So I don't know if, what your thoughts are on that.
That's a really interesting concept. The thing is, well, here's the thing. The reason, it's a really interesting legend, and that could be very cool, but the two reasons I'm sticking with zombies are, one, that the guys from Aegis say that this is just like Winterfold. Right? They say that this is just like what happened in Winterfold, right? So, there being a smog monster is really not that close to the events of what happened in House of Ashes. But there being some kind of horrible things, a group of horrible things in a siege, and monsters, had they spread out beyond there, would have been a disaster. That feels to me like that's probably what they were talking about. Okay, so that's why I'm more likely to think zombies. And maybe I'm reading too much into graphic design here, but am I the only one who says if you see a bloody handprint on a street the sign of a road sign, of a city, that means zombies, right? That is the universal symbol for zombies.
I think as well, because it says that the zombie state poster in The Devil in Me, of course it could be a red herring.
It's literally called Zombie State at Winterfold Forest. You're right, we would be being led up quite a garden path. They would essentially have been just lying to us for 2 games in a row if it turns out to not be zombies at this point.
Yeah, nonetheless, I thought it was such an interesting comment because obviously the backstory there with the forest and the fog, and obviously that ties obviously with Little Hope and stuff. But I thought I would put that to you.
That actually raises a question for me, which is, do you think that Winterfold will be set in the actual Winterfold forest, i.e. they're going to do a game set in the UK, or do you think that we're going to do something completely different, and they're just going to have a place called Winterfold Forest and they set it wherever they want? And I had been assuming it's going to be set in Winterfold Forest, the actual one, but then this is me just putting way too much thought into this. I'm like, why is there a poster from a British, punk festival in Illinois, So that gave me second thoughts.
I'm kind of nicking this from Jack because Jack came up with this theory.
Yeah.
Or not theory, but kind of idea of something that could happen. Obviously, with it being a punk festival, could it be that the group we follow is like a punk band? Maybe we could have a singer, a roadie, a drummer, a bassist, a guitarist. And I love that because obviously Little Hope gave us a really sort of cool mix of ages. Yeah. I would love that, right? Because Little Hope gave us a mix of ages where we're this school bus full of students of varied ages. Man and Medan, you've got some family links, a relationship in there, kind of all the same age.
Mm-hmm.
But what if, like, they gave us a band?
Oh my
like, can you imagine kind of like the dialogue, the fun writing you could have with that? And for maybe it to be like British punks that are a bit kind of out there, bad morals, you know, like heavily, maybe they're smokers, drinkers, and then to have these like kind of wild characters go up against zombies. I would love that, like, and that would have potential. It would be like maybe my favorite DPA game if that happened.
Totally, it would be a tonal departure from the rest of them, but it would be interesting as hell. No, I think that would be cool. That would be so cool. You're right. Yeah, I would love that.
Yeah.
It even has the names on the poster, doesn't it?
It
like,
does.
I remember when we was talking about it in the video, like Keltec, I think, is it X-Fade or something? I was like, are we literally seeing like
the name of the band in the same way they put the show Architects of Murder in Little Hope? Like, have they given us this big hint?
Yeah.
I think they might have. I think that's a great theory, and I would not be surprised at all if that turned out to be true. That would be so cool. You think it's actually
get Paul K back in to be like the guitarist or some shit?
My question is, and this is going to be weird, do you think it's going to be set in the 90s? Like, because that's what everyone's assuming based on the poster, and my thought is kind of the same. I mean, we know it's set before 2003 because the events that inspired it are talked about in 2003. So I'm like, it's probably going to be set in the 90s, right? Just like the poster suggests.
Yeah, I mean, I would love that. Like, obviously, you know, 80s, 90s, you know, where you've got that kind of like Sex Pistols craze going on. I think, you know, and if it is with my band Theory, then I reckon that would just go hand in hand, and I think it would marry really well. But I don't know about you, Jet.
I'd be so down for that. Mm-hmm. I've even thought it out to the point where, like, I mean, obviously this is me just spitballing ideas. You know, it could start off very classic, where you have like some sort of science lab, and you know how it goes. If something usually goes wrong, maybe the two scientists die. Then you could have the main body of the game where it's starting off and you're like seeing like a crowd of people. They're on the stage, like, you know, rocking out some tunes, and then shit hits the fan. A zombie just randomly gets in there. The whole audience start to get
zombified,
infected.
Yep.
Yeah, maybe you could have like a situation where the forest gets quarantined.
Right.
Like, I've seen this movie called Quarantine, where the whole area gets quarantined.
Or the crazies.
Maybe like it's just a matter of.
And you have to try and figure out how to escape. That would be fantastic.
We'll have to see. But I'd say of the four, I mean, I'm excited for all of them. I think Winterfold for me is the one I'm looking forward to the most.
Interesting.
One thing that I'm quite concerned about Winterfold, though, is that obviously zombies is quite a bold thing to do. Like, we know, like, from DPA Season 1, they've gone for, like, weird bat vampires. We've got, like, a traditional serial killer with an axe. We've got, like, a scary woman, you know, the scariest of all the villains there. You know, like Sailor Girl. But here we've got zombies right now. My problem with zombies is that it's quite, I would say, almost overdone, where everything on zombies has been written. I know you can kind of go outside the box to deviate from that statement. So, like, obviously Last of Us goes with, like, mushrooms. You know, certain zombies are able to run, certain are, like, your classic, you know, Night of the Living Dead, the original ones that are really slow flesh eaters. I'd be scared that they're going to fall into the same traps, because, like, you look at The Walking Dead, like, that show arguably went on for quite a long time, where it went through the same story arcs. It, like, overwrote the same things, where it's like, oh, here's a human villain settlement, here's another human villain settlement. So I'd be really concerned as to, like, if they'd fall into the same traps and we'd see, like, whatever they write in another book or another film. So I want to ask you, Hidden Object Guru, do you reckon that, like, it's kind of like they're walking on thin ice a little bit, writing about zombies potentially?
Absolutely, I agree that they are, that it's a very dangerous thing to weigh in on, because, as you said, there has been so much zombie overexposure over the past 20 years. Like, ever since that Dawn of the Dead remake, we have just been flooded with zombies in a trend that, like, just refuses to die. Not unlike a zombie. And what I think that it's very dangerous for them to do this. Like, it really is. But at the same time, I don't think they would have, if you look at everything they've done so far, I don't think they'd have decided to do it unless they had a fresh take or a way to make it interesting. And the fact is, you know, I don't come to these for like a completely different plot idea. I come to these because they're the best at storytelling and they're the best with characters. And the fact is, like, even if we wind up seeing plot stuff we've seen before and situations we've seen before, as long as they can get us emotionally hooked with these characters and come up with some dynamite choices, I think we're going to be completely sold. You know?
No, I completely agree. I trust in their writing ability, that they must have something really cool up their sleeves that I'm really intrigued to see.
So yeah, Winterfold, definitely excited. Sure, it's zombies. Would love it to be one of those bands. That is such a great idea.
Yeah, we'd love that. Anything on Winterfold, Jack, before we move on to our third game?
No, I don't think so. I mean, what one? We've got 2 left, Intercession and Craven Man. What's the consensus?
Hidden Object Guru, I'll let you decide. Would you like to speak about Intercession or Craven Man?
Let's do Intercession.
Okay, cool. Intercession. So, what do we know about Intercession so far? Possibly like a religious game. We've got, like, the only sort of solid clue I can really think of off the top of my head is the Yellow Cross book, potentially anyway, in The Devil in Me, written by T.S. Hartley, I believe. He's written a few of, like, the books that we see scattered around. So, Hidden Object Guru, just really broad question. Do you have any early theories about where this game's set, what the villain could be, the timeline?
Okay, so the interesting thing is, the book that T.S. Hartley wrote, in the same way that the book about the witch trials was based on a real thing, right? It gave us a really big clue about what Little Hope was about, right? And my thought is, we're dealing with a similar, like, level of clue here this time, because it is about the book, at least, is about a real thing that happened where a bunch of, you know, a different religious group was brutally massacred over the course of like a couple of days. And that is the dramatic situation that they are recreating here. And my thing is, and a lot of people have said it's actually going to be set in the past when this kind of stuff is happening. And I don't know if I'm willing to go that far, but I think the themes might be important of there being like a strange, isolated religious group that has its own things going on. And my question is, but comparatively, the title, I want to know if the title is in and of itself meaningful, because intercession means basically Deus Ex Machina, right? It is the term you use for when a saint or an angel actually comes and helps you. Because you pray for help of an angel, or you pray for the help of a saint, and intercession is what happens when they come through and they actually do it. And so my question is, they have been very good about saying no magic in this world. They have been despite the curator's existence, they're like, okay, no magic, but hey, I'll die on the hill that there's a real ghost in Little Hope. And my question is, are they going to go all in on religious or possession horror this time? And so while I think the book might be relevant, I don't think, as some people have thought, that the game is actually going to be set in the past. I think it's going to be more likely present-ish day, is my thought. And I think it's definitely going to factor in religious conflict, but I just don't have a lot beyond that to guess, sadly. Okay,
yeah, great. Jack, any comments on, what you reckon good old Intercession could be about?
Wow, I've got so many ideas, and they're completely contradicting one another. Honestly, come off the back what Hidden was saying there. It seems like we've been waiting for like a possession-based story for ages now, because I know it was sort of thinking about, with The Devil in Me, potentially there was going to be possession-based with the spirit of H.H. Holmes getting into the body of Dumet and then that being passed on, etc. And that, me at least, that didn't quite translate. So I was thinking, okay, maybe it's in the next one. Potentially it could be slightly hinted at in Directive 8020 if it does go the shapeshifter route. Against that sort of the possession takeover of the body. But I think, there's perhaps this is going to be the one where that takes place. But then to honestly completely go against that, I've had this thing about the Mothman for ages. Isn't it?
The Mothman.
Yeah.
I know.
It's horrible. You get the Mannington, the quote that you found, mate, about referring to moths was on Abby's T-shirt. I was thinking to myself, if the Mothman isn't the villain in one of these DPA games, all it does is it leads me to think that perhaps it's going to be the villain in the next supermassive blockbuster. I don't know, but because obviously the Salim Othman, because that was in a DPA game, I feel like that it's got legs, and I feel like that Intercession perhaps is the one where we get Mothman. I'm not sure, but yeah, I don't know if there's anything there that you wanted to chew the bones off, but yeah, it's probably the most unpredictable one for me so far as to what the villain is.
I think it has to be. We found so many Mothman clues, and granted, a lot of them were in the quarry, which isn't technically DPA, but that could still be supermassive games could still put breadcrumbs in other games potentially. So I'm not completely ruling it out. But yeah, like you say, a big part of the lore was West Virginia and Mannington, right? Which is where what Nick wears on his shirt. Like you say, Abby's got a fat moth on her shirt. She even, I think it's the belt has number 59, and there's a Bible quote that refer to moths in one of the sections, 59. And like you say, Salim Othman, literally it has Mothman in his name. The Mothman just has to appear in one of the DPA games. And I think it's Intercession. Now, yeah, whether it's to do with a religious cult, I'm unsure. You've got the kind of the upside down cross, I believe. But yeah, I think it has to be. I don't have really many theories about the location, about the group we're going to be exploring. But yeah, the villain seems to be the most concrete thing we have at the moment, and that is the Mothman. Now, I know Hidden Object Guru, you're the master at researching in these games. You're so good at looking in the details. Tell us about your findings if you've stumbled upon this Mothman theory as well.
Well, like I said, the Silver Bridge, Silver Springs thing immediately jumped out at me as being important, right? The fact that they could have made Dumet be from anywhere, but they went with Silver Springs, Maryland, and it's the Silver Bridge collapse that the Mothman mythology is all built around. I thought that was fairly key, right? That's a big one. But, and I know this is going to sound contradictory for no reason, but for some reason, I think we're more likely to get Mothman in Craven Man. I don't know why. I don't know why, but I think if we're getting Mothman, that's the reason it's going to turn up. But I'll get there in a second. But first, Intercession. One more thing. I know that this is a stretch, but I think it might be set in Ireland. And I think this might be the game that gets set in Ireland. And I know a lot of people think the folk horror is going to be Ireland. And this is where my theories are very different from a lot of everybody else's. I think Intercession, the historical one, is going to be the one he's thinking about it in Ireland. And I think folk horror is going to be America. And that part of the folk horror thing will be Mothman.
Damn. Because I know you...
Yeah, I know it's not a popular theory.
No, it's interesting. It could be right. I mean, the funny thing, this is why I find it so confusing with the whole Intercession thing, because you've got all this evidence about Mothman, and it's a folklore that originated in West Virginia and stuff like that. But obviously, we have this book, The Yellow Cross, where on the back it talks about. There's lots of references to France, of course, Béziers. I think there's a character called. Munich or something like that, and that's a town in France.
Yep.
So a part of me is thinking it's going to be set in America, a part of me is going to be set in France. I'm not quite sure.
I hear you, but I'm just saying, Rathlin Island, everybody. Let's not forget that Rathlin Island has to be the setting of the game. Not only did Salim's son have a giant poster of Ireland, which had a huge inset of Rathlin Island, A. B, there's a Rathlin room in Dumet's in H.H. Holmes Hotel. C, that's where Robert the Bruce hid from the British, and the whole spider cave thing happened on Rathlin Island, and we got that famous spider from the opening credits. I'm just saying, something has to be said on Rathlin Island. And I think it's going to be Intercession, because Rathlin Island was the site of the exact kind of, brutal religious massacre that is talked about in the book, The Yellow Cross. That actually happened on Rathlin Island as well. So You put all that together, you got the bird sighting on the British Isles book. We're getting a game set on Rathlin Island, and I think it's Intercession. And again, I know it could easily be Craven Man because, hey, Rathlin Island, pretty isolated place. It's the perfect place for a Wicker Man style folk horror situation to take place. And that could be the most likely, that could be exactly what's happening. But I'm just saying, the way I've thought it through, I'm thinking the folk horror of Craven Man, assuming that's what it is, that's what the scarecrows are pointed at. That's where we're going to get Mothman, is my thought. And I think Intercession is going to be Rathlin Island, Irish history, some kind of monster.
Time will tell.
Then maybe possession. I know. It's a bit of a stretch, but I really think we're gonna get Mothman somewhere in these, and I think it's gonna be Craven Man. But I mean, Jesus, we're probably gonna have to wait a year before we even get a hint at any of this. So.
Yeah, you know what? I've had this sort of idea with like the Mothman because it's so well known for like its red eyes that sort of like pierce through the dark.
Yeah.
Just imagine like playing Directive 8020. We find the gold frame. You look at it, and all that comes up is a black screen, and then you just see like these two red eyes like pop.
Red eyes.
I think that'd be such a good.
Oh, that would be amazing. Oh, and also I know I know this one's a bit of a reach. 100% the blood stain on the wall in the guest house in Devil and Me. That's the silhouette of the Mothman.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I like that.
That's another hill I'll die on. I'm 100% sure that's supposed to be the Mothman's image. I can't prove that, but I'm 100% sure that's accurate. Because whether it's a can of soup or, Jamie's head, you get this really, really distinctive blood stain on the wall. And I could see that it's supposed to be one of the bat monsters, but no, I think that's supposed to be the Mothman.
Interesting. So, I mean, obviously, Mothman, whether it is Craven Man or Intercession, it's really tough to tell, but we're heart set that we're getting a Mothman, which would be really cool. And to be honest, I'd be really intrigued to see what Supermassive Games do to kind of like make it a unique villain, so it's like quite different from like say like the Bat Vampires in House of Ashes. It'd be really cool to see what kind of like how you go against them, how you escape them. I'm really intrigued there. It sounds epic. I know like they love to play their folklore, like the Orang of Medan's a real thing, Wendigos were like a real sort of like, myth kind of thing in folklore.
Yep.
So yeah, like to bring the Mothman in would just blend in really well with the rest of the series, and I'm really eager to see what they throw at us, to be honest.
It's funny because being from Canada, I didn't know that Wendigos weren't a well-known thing. Right? Because it's a mythology from Canada, so I grew up knowing all about them my entire life. And so it's funny, like literally the first time a friend and I played Until Dawn together. So like we like, okay, is this green man in the woods trying to kill people? But like literally the minute something is chasing Mike and Jessica and drags Jessica out the window, my friend and I turned to each other like, okay, so it's Wendigos. We're dealing with killer Wendigos. When you're from Canada, that's one of the first things you think of.
Well, Jack and I in Britain are just running away as Emily in Chapter 8. Like, why is Gollum screaming at us? Why is he in the game? Like, we were just, like, confused. Like, what? There's, like, I thought Josh was the villain. What's going on? Like, I mean, I think it looks like quite a good time to just segue into our final game. So we have the Craven Man. Obviously, this is the one that a lot of people think is, like, the Gallic game. It might be, like, a Celtic mythology or Celtic folklore game. Now, obviously, Ireland could be a possibility. I just want to point us to Zane's map. One of the other locations, other than like the Winterfold Forest and Ireland that he's got, another possible location that also does fit with the Gallic thing, with the possible font of the Craven Man, is up in Scotland. Zane has like clearly got this like rope or noose thing, kind of like between Edinburgh and Glasgow. So do you guys reckon there could be a potential here that we could have a game potentially set in Scotland?
I'll jump in. I think it's definitely a possibility. Like I said, I really do think it's not an accident, because who gets a map with a zoom in on Rathlin Island? Like, come on, that's insane. It's tiny. And the fact that they like went out of their way to not write down Rathlin Island so that like it would be a little Easter egg if you figured out what that island was, that they use like its strange, is it the Gaelic spelling of the name? Like whatever it is, right? I didn't actually look up what it was, but I gotta say, like the map is really intriguing, and for that reason, I'm really I'm really hoping it's Rathlin, but I see how it could easily point to Scotland. And hell, there's plenty of isolated islands off of Scotland.
Yeah, no, that is very true.
I mean, yeah, of Wicker Man and stuff like that. I think that's what I subscribe to the most. The Craven Man it's got a bit of a question mark, I think, for me in terms of actual evidence within the games. Maybe I've not just been looking hard enough, but like, yeah, I think I'm definitely subscribing to the fact that it's going to be either Ireland or Scotland. And even coming back to the whole Ireland thing, like the Irish surnames, like the devil in me, it does make me lean towards Ireland. But then, of course, like we've just talked about already, it could be that there's both. There could be a game set in Ireland, a game set in Scotland. We don't know. But then we're equally saying there could be one set in England with Winterfold Forest, which seems like a little bit of a British overkill. Like even I'll admit that.
I really sincerely doubt 3/4 of season 2 are going to be set in the UK. Like I don't see that happening. Exactly. I really don't see that happening.
Yeah, so it'd be just a matter of like picking out like what ones I think it's going to be. I think on the island, I think it was like it looked like a banshee or something that was on on island.
The banshee was circled. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, I'm really unsure. I mean, obviously, having seen the film Midsummer as well, I think that the cult horror it could be one of the best.
Being someone who's like Cornish and Irish, I associate myself pretty much as a Celt. So like, I'm really like that is the one I'm looking forward to. One random thing that I've always sort of mentioned, and I've got very little to go off, but for some reason I just see it being like, and Jack, you hit the nail on the head with this when you said the Wicker Man. I can really see it being like a Wicker Man style game, or a bit like Midsummer, that recent horror film that came out, where we've got some kind of like creepy cult going on, and then we could be integrated within it, and then the whole story is about getting the fuck out of that cult, because like, they're doing evil doings that we like figure out halfway through the game. I just think that would be a really interesting game, and I don't know if you guys have any ideas about whether like the Banshee is going to be the villain, or if it's going to be a cult. Maybe it can be both. We know Until Dawn throw like 3 threats at us. It can be more than one thing. But I don't know if you guys have any sort of set in stone ideas on what you reckon the jeopardy of this game's going to be with the Craven Man. I'll start with you, Jack.
To be honest, I really don't. The only thing, I don't know, maybe like go with the whole cult thing. Maybe they believe in this weird god or demon thing, and there's some sort of ritual they perform that brings it about. I'm really not sure. It is the game that I'm puzzled by the most in terms of what the villain is and how it knits together with sort of the characters and the subgenre of horror. But that's all I can think of.
Well, for me, something that I know this is a real stretch for the Banshee thing, but I was actually wondering if the Banshee had some connection to the Curator, because the Banshee's mythology is that it warns you that like it is a prophecy that somebody's going to die, which is exactly the role that the Curator has played in the games. Whenever you see the Curator, somebody's about to die, or someone could die. Like it's one or the other, right? And for me, I think that might be more meaningful than actually seeing a Banshee in the game. I think it might just be a nod to the Curator's role in the series. I'm most likely to think if any of them is going to focus in Season 2, if any of these 3 games is going to focus just on a human threat, the same way The Devil in Me just had a human threat, I would say Craven Man would be the most likely one. I still want killer scarecrows in a game, but it could just be people dressed as scarecrows. Like imagine a wonderful scene where you've got like these scarecrows all over the island, and then just like the dummies with Dumet, some of them are actually people just dressed that way who can come and get you. That's a really creepy idea, and it plays really well. So I'm thinking that's where we're going to see the scarecrows. I think if any of them is most likely to have human rather than supernatural, or at least weird threats, it's going to be this one. So that is my prediction that is definitely my prediction for this one.
That is true, because obviously you mentioned that we see scarecrows in Switchback. Yep. They're not really in the game before. We see scarecrows in Until Dawn, don't we, as like one of the 3 possible kind of villains you can kind of have there. Yep. So we know they've got the model for it, and they had it in Switchback.
And let's not forget, we've seen scarecrows pointedly, as I mentioned in one of my videos, in I think it's Medan you see scarecrows in a field, and then in the subsequent game you see the same field, and now there are just crosses in the field because the scarecrow isn't on the cross anymore.
Yeah. Oh, there we go.
So it's like over the course of 2 games, you create the idea of a scarecrow climbing off of a cross and coming to get you. So that's something worth thinking about.
Oh no, fantastic! No, I really love like the theories we've got. I reckon that obviously we'll need more snippets and bites when we get Directive 8020 to hopefully dissect this topic more. But,
100%.
But yeah, for now though, I think we've got a really good solid basis. Like obviously, like we're the guys on YouTube here who like dissect this down and like. But I think we've got a really solid foundation and evidence as to what we can have. So. If Supermassive Games are looking on at this video, they might be trembling like, oh, they've got us. We've got to rewrite the stories.
I know, like they are leading us. No, they would never rewrite the stories. They will be laughing at us about all of our wrong answers and the way they've led us around their nose with some of these by the nose with some of these clues. Though I'm sure they'll do that.
Yeah.
One thing though that I find really interesting is this comment that got made in that same Reddit AMA way back, which is that there have been clues planted for stuff that is way in the future. Like, so theoretically, there have already been clues to stuff from, and I mean, we know about one of them, which is Winterfold. Like, because that's game 3, and Winterfold isn't going to be until at least game 6, right? So we know for a fact that we've seen a couple of the really far off, but just imagine that somewhere in Man of Medan, there is a clue to season 2 that we don't even know is a clue to season 2 because we don't know what those games are about yet.
It's true, because we did have that with Brad's ghost story talking about the devil in me, and that's a ghost story that we just looked over. And then boom, like you look back at that ghost story, he's basically telling us the devil in me. So yeah, It's going to be really interesting to like go back through these games and was like, oh, they were literally talking about Directive 8020 and we didn't even realize it. So like, I'm going to really enjoy going back through every single game
I know.
to see the breadcrumbs that we completely looked past. Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting.
I think as well, because I mean, we've not done our analysis series of Man of Medan or Little Hope, have we yet, mate? So like, if we go back and play them games, like maybe we could go a little bit more detective than usual and see if there is anything that we've potentially missed.
Yeah, just dissect every dialogue.
The famous one, right, is the famous one is people are like, does the dartboard point at Japan? Right? Does the dartboard results, right, that are written down, does that actually, because if you turn them into coordinates, it goes to Japan. And the question is, okay, well, is that a coincidence? Or is the fact that A, the Japanese Olympics were mentioned, B, we got that pointed at Japan, and C, we got the line in Man of Medan about how should we, are you now regretting us not just going to Japan for this vacation? That Brad says to Julia.
Wow.
So it's like we've got 3 prominent things pointing at Japan at some point.
Yeah, I mean, I would love a game set in Asia. It would be such a nice like change of pace, and also like if these guys do want to go and write more, and they've got season 3 in the works, could be that we've got breadcrumbs for season 3.
This is what I'm saying, like they say they got more plans, so who knows? Okay, and one question for you, and I know this is probably the silliest thing in the world. Zane is a playable character, yes or no?
Yeah.
Oh, God, I'll let you start, Jack, if you like.
I'd love that. Yeah. I'll be on.
Like, just do a modified version of the Salim model for him?
Yeah, because, like, in terms of do I want that, yes. But I'd want it to be done right. And obviously, it would also be a massive indicator as to, like, a game with a timeline. Because if Zane's, like, a kid in 2003, or, like, a teenager who's ready to go to uni... Yeah. If you'd want him as maybe a 40-year-old, you could set a game in, like, I don't know, maybe like 2030. I don't know, like, so yeah, like that could give us a strong indicator as to when a game's going to be set. But yeah, I would love that.
I mean, we assume he was 2003, yeah. Yeah, so that's, like I said, my first thought for Intercession was Rathlin Island, Zane's going to be one of the main characters. And I have no idea if that's true, but, it absolutely could happen. So fingers crossed on that one.
Oh no, that's fantastic.
Oh man. All right.
But yeah, like, I mean, we'll wrap it up there. But yeah, obviously, Hidden Object Guru, thank you very much for like passing your theories. Like, I've learned so much today. But yeah, like, Jack, anything to add there?
No, and I just want to say thank you, because there's a couple of those theories never occurred to me, but it's like, now I want that band-themed game.
Yeah, let's play as a band. And imagine movie night mode.
Oh, badly.
Imagine if you're an actual band, and then you go on, on like the movie mode, and then you could literally like the drummer could play the drummer, the bassist, and then it just sounds like really epic, like something that would, like, I reckon would just be really appealing. Like, let's have a game where we play as a punk band.
Yeah, it just starts off with QTEs of you hitting the buttons to play the music.
the prologue is literally Guitar Hero.
Yeah.
There you go. Oh, that'd be so good.
Yeah, honestly, yeah, thank you so much for joining us, Hidden Object Guru. It's been really good to like have these little recording sessions with you and to hear your ideas and things. So yeah, just like really good to have you on the channel.
Well, happy to do it. As you may have noticed, my favorite thing in the world is Dark Pictures games. So I'm always happy to talk about them.
No, of course. No, it's been a pleasure. We'll let you sign the show off, Hidden Object Guru, if there's anything you want to put in as a plug. Or, But yeah, feel free to sign off the episode.
Will do. As always, check out the Hidden Object Guru channel. I'm currently making... I've got a couple of videos coming up that I think are going to be pretty interesting. One of them is about the biggest plot hole that I have found in the Quarry, and it's a real bad one. I still love the game, but it's a pretty big plot hole. Then we've got a larger project I'm doing, which should be really fun. I already mentioned this previously, but it's coming up that I'm going to be having a video investigating just what the odds are if you use the random mode of anybody surviving the night in the Quarry. So that should be a lot of fun too. Also, I'll be putting together my what the story in Switchback means. And I know that a lot of you are saying, Switchback has a story? Well, kind of. And that's what I'm going to be analyzing. So look forward to all of that.
Yeah, there you go, guys. That sounds fascinating to me. Like, I can't wait to see that myself personally. So his channel link's going to be in the description. Be sure to check that out. I'm sure you subbed already, but it'll be there. But thank you very much, guys, for joining for this this recording. We'll see you in the next one. Ciao for now from me.
See you next time.
And au revoir.